are. Let's head to the United Nations right now. The Slovenian ambassador to the UN is delivering a statement on Gaza on behalf of all 5 European members of the Security Council.
Greece and Slovenia call for today's urgent meeting of the Security Council on the situation in Gaza. We condemn the government of Israel's decision to further expand its military operations in Gaza. This plan risks violating international humanitarian law. We call on Israel to urgently reverse this decision and not to implement it. And we reiterate that any attempts at annexation or of settlement extension violate international law. Expanding military operations will only endanger the lives of all civilians in Gaza, including the remaining hostages, and result in further unnecessary suffering. Just this week, the Security Council heard a harrowing testimony from Itai David, the brother of Eviatar David, who was cruelly taken hostage by Hamas on 7 October and has been held in atrocious conditions in Gaza for over 22 months. His briefing was a stark reminder that the suffering of the remaining hostages and their families must end. The Security Council has consistently called for the unconditional and immediate release of all the hostages. And we are clear that Hamas must disarm and play no future part in the governance of Gaza, where the Palestinian Authority must have a central role. But this decision by the Israeli government will do nothing to secure the return of the hostages and risk further endangering their lives. It will also worsen the already catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza and risks further death and mass displacement of Palestinian civilians. The IPC has warned that famine is unfolding in Gaza. Children are dying from starvation. Hunger is so severe that desperate civilians are taking the risk of getting killed at aid distribution sites in order to feed their families. This is a man-made crisis, and therefore urgent action is needed to halt starvation and to surge aid into Gaza. We have a clear message for Israel. Lift restrictions on aid delivery to allow the UN and establish humanitarian partners to operate safely and at scale, in line with the principles of humanity, impartiality, neutrality, and independence. It is also vital that international NGOs can operate in Gaza. Israel's unreasonable visa and registration requirements must be removed, and all land routes opened for essential supplies, including food, baby formula, medicine, fuel, and clean water. After 22 months of suffering in Gaza, now is the time for diplomacy, no more war. The ceasefire earlier this year showed what can be achieved when there is political will. It ended the bloodshed. Hostages were reunited with their loved ones. Effective humanitarian aid reached those in desperate need. The International Conference on the Two-State Solution last month, co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia, was a powerful demonstration of the strength of international resolve to secure a better future and deliver long-term peace for Israelis, Palestinians, and the region. We call on both parties to secure an immediate and permanent ceasefire, the release of all the hostages, and to urgently advance efforts to achieve a two-state solution. Thank you.
Ambassador, can you just take a question? Is there any
plan,
European plan to get the talks back on?
We'll speak inside.
Thank you.
Okay, they're taking no questions. These are the UN ambassadors of the European countries that are members of the UN Security Council. So we're going to go to Al Jazeera's Gabriel Elizondo, who's been following this with us live. Gabriel, what we're watching now, let's do this step by step. We are minutes away from a meeting of the UN Security Council starting. That should be in about 9 minutes. So what we're watching now is what you told us earlier, called in diplomatic jargon, a stakeout. So they get to say what they want to say to the press and put their message out there in a slightly less, formal setting. I've been taking notes. I know you were taking notes too. What stands out to you? What are the highlights there for you?
Yeah, a couple things, and I'll get to that right in a second. But I want to just say, because you bring up a good point, say if they're about to go into a meeting and give their country's statements officially, why do they do it before the meeting starts? It's very important, and the reason is because they want to show, they meaning these 5 countries, want to show a united front. And that is the significance of these so-called stakeouts that are held before the Security Council meetings. That was the Slovenian ambassador to the UN. Behind him were the UK, France, Denmark, and Greece. The 5 European members of the Security Council speaking with one voice. Now, what stood out? 2 things. Number one, you can't get more clear than this. They said, we condemn the government of Israel's decision to further expand its military operations in Gaza. The plan risks violating international humanitarian law. We call on Israel to urgently reverse this decision and not implement it. Very clear language. No way to slice that any 2 ways. That's very clear. And I think the second thing is there is to say we have a clear message for Israel when it comes to the humanitarian situation. They said lift restrictions on aid delivery. Period. I think these are the key messages coming out of this joint statement by the European members of the Council.
Okay. A couple minutes from now, the Security Council meeting begins. We know what the Europeans think. There's 5 of them, 15 members at the security meeting, so that's a third. We know what a third of the countries at that meeting will think. There's one big voice, obviously, we didn't hear from just now, that didn't even want this meeting in the first place, and that's the United States.
Yeah, that's right. Diplomatic sources tell Al Jazeera that over the last 24 hours or so, the United States has been pushing to either delay this meeting or cancel it altogether. That clearly did not happen. This meeting is going forward. And some of our viewers might say, well, can't the U.S. veto this meeting? Because I think they vetoed other things. I'll just answer that. The short answer is no. The U.S. or none of the 5 permanent members can veto such a meeting. It's up to this month Panama, who holds the presidency of the Security Council this month, to schedule the meeting or not. Obviously they are, because 14 of the 15 Security Council members wanted this meeting. The U.S. has vetoed 5 draft resolutions in front of the Security Council calling for a ceasefire in Gaza over the last 22 months. The U.S.'s position is very clear. They are Israel's strongest ally, and it'll be interesting to see what exactly the U.S. says during the Security Council meeting to justify Israel's announcement of wanting to seize Gaza City. So we'll be watching that very closely. But expect a lot of condemnation, because it's clear the vast majority of Security Council members want this meeting because they want their country's position to be known and be known in the Security Council chambers.
Gabe, you know how many people feel about that when you say there's going to be a lot of condemnation, and I'm sure that's going to be the case, based if only on what we just heard. I think many of our viewers look at that and they think it's going to be more talk and little to no action, and there's a great deal of frustration. The UN's primary role since its inception was to either prevent or stop conflict, and it hasn't been able to do that, certainly not in this conflict. And can you speak to any frustration that exists within the UN because of this?
Yeah, certainly. I can tell you that some of the Security Council members will tell you privately they are frustrated that they have not been able to bring an end to this, that they have not been able to stop this genocide taking place in Gaza over the last 22 months. They acknowledge this, and this is where you get wider discussions now taking place in the General Assembly and elsewhere about what? About the veto power. The 5 permanent members of the Security Council have this all-important veto power that the United States has used 5 different times. I repeat it, 5 different times over the past 22 months to block ceasefire resolutions. So there's lots of talk about no matter what 14 members of the Security Council want to do, if one of the 5 permanent members wants to block something, they can. And that is why you're seeing more discussions about perhaps in the coming years, it's going to take years, reforming the Security Council or even expanding the Security Council as well. These are discussions that is something that's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's probably not going to happen next year. But these discussions are gaining volume, if you will, primarily because, going to your point, there is serious frustration that condemnation simply is not getting the job done.
Gabriel, thank you very much for all of that.
Don't miss out on the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.